All right, good morning, everybody. So, today, what we want to talk about is reports of people who have gotten the jab causing people who have not gotten the jab to have really weird reproductive cycles, menstrual cycles, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, why is that happening? Why do we think it's happening? And the quick 10-second answer is we have absolutely no idea. And we apologize. Well, I don't apologize because I've been warning you, but basically they have absolutely no idea, and they will probably medically gaslight you into thinking that it is completely coincidence or just a correlation, not a causation. And the honest truth is they have absolutely no idea. Yes, there were 44,000 people in the trials. Did they study every possible reaction and how that interacted in their environment? No, they did not, because 0.2 or 0.6% of people in the trials of the 44,000 people got lymphatic swelling in their armpits, and now 16% of women are getting lymphatic swelling in their armpits. So just because it did not happen in the trial does not mean it does not happen in real life. So if you got the jab, you are now the experiment. You are part of the experiment and your real life experience, and what happens to you for the next 5, 10, 20 years, because most cancers take 10 to 15 years to fully develop, is part of the experiment. And I'm going to post a little bit more on that tomorrow, because people are like, well, how do you know that the PEG that no one's ever really put in a shot before, we've never even heard of some of these forms of the lipids that they're actually using, how do you know that that is carcinogenic? It's like, well, PEG generally is contaminated with ethylene dioxide or ethylene oxide, which is highly carcinogenic. And I actually have patient blood labs, at least one so far, that might prove it, or at least be like hey, this is a red flag. And yes, it's only one patient, but I'm going to share that tomorrow. But right now, everyone's talking about the females having crazy periods after they got the jab, and even the people around them who are having crazy periods who got the jab. Now, there's no live or inactive virus that we know of in these shots, because there have been no independent labs that have done testing to see if what they say is in the shot is in the shot, what happens when it changes temperature, what happens when it's been transported across the country, and what happens to the people who have gotten the jab. Can they shed the spike protein? Some scientists say yes, some say no. So it could be that the people who got the jab are shedding not virus, but the spike protein fragments, the receptor binding domain that's causing the problem. So it's like people are getting a little bit of vasculitis, or almost like mini COVID when they get the Rona jab. So that's kind of crazy. So be careful. Because even if you did not get the jab and you're around people who did get the jab, as a woman, your cycles will be off. And that doesn't mean it's not affecting men. It just means women are like the canary in the coal mine. They have more symptoms than men do, but men still get hormonal cycles. I mean, if you look at all these trees I'm passing right now, for years we thought that trees were not very sentient. We thought that trees were not intelligent. But kind of like the movie Avatar, we've now learned that trees have basically like hormone-like transmitters that they release when there's problems in the earth, and when there's problems with their soil, when there's problems with, not enough water, when there's problems with a tree getting cut down. They all communicate to each other. Just like bees and ants have ways to communicate in like radio frequencies and hormone signaling and pheromones, and like women and people do the same thing. We have ways to communicate to each other that are innately intelligent that science hasn't even discovered yet. So there's probably pheromones that get released. There's probably toxins or, viral proteins that shed. There could be some other things in the I don't want to say that word. There's things in the jab that could also potentially spread, but we have absolutely no idea because no one is studying it. I'm trying to do the best I can to study pre and post shot reactions, which is extremely concerning because pretty much everybody who's having a bad reaction post jab is having what looks to be like a mini case of vasculitis or COVID, which could be devastating. So that's kind of concerning. And why are we ignoring natural immunity and T cells and natural killer cells? And that I was going to post today on something positive, like the fact that physical touch is and 20 minutes of movement a day are actually two of the quickest ways to increase your natural killer cells and basically protect you from even catching any type of infection. So basically like locking down, keeping people distanced and not moving and closing the gyms and is probably the worst thing we could have possibly done this year. So that's probably one of many reasons why when people reopen lockdowns or they end the mask mandates, that those states seem to do better than the other states. Now, communistic type lockdowns like China and Australia and New Zealand, like that seems to actually work a little bit. Canada's actually doing pretty much better off than the USA. The problem is this is probably just going to likely delay the inevitable and prolong this nightmare, which is why all the World Banks say this is probably going till 2025. So it might not go till 2025 in every state or every place, but there's going to be a lot of people moving to places like Florida and Texas and the United States that are much more free than all those Canadians who are stuck in Canada and probably going to be locked inside for the next 3 years or 5 years or 4 years or however long this lasts. We have absolutely no idea. But the thing about the jab is that we have no idea why the people who have gotten the jab are having crazy periods. There was something going around at the beginning of this called like syncytin and how it affects that protein, but that's an extremely really bad version of science, and basically it doesn't likely affect syncytin because the logical means is like they're saying, well, this one part of the jab or the virus looks a little bit like molecular mimicry, like something else. And just because it looks like something else doesn't mean it is something else. Like a violet and a rose kind of look the same, but it doesn't mean that they're going to have the same scent or the same effect. So that's kind of like a pseudoscience-y claim and doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the moral of the story is we have absolutely no idea why that's happening, but we do know that women resonate with each other. So my best guess, if it's not like pheromones, if it's not the viral protein, shedding, because you're actually getting like millions, probably billions of those injected into with just that little dose. There's actually proven to be, I think, like over 13 million lipid particles. So it could be the lipid particles that are toxic because they turn into, I think it's HEMA, but that's something I'm going to post on tomorrow. But basically, the PEG and the lipid particles could have EO, which could break down into other things, and they're all carcinogenic and bad, and we have no idea if that dose is going to cause cancer in people or not. Hopefully it doesn't. Our bodies are innately intelligent, and if you've already gotten the jab, and you're like, oh shoot, this is bad, look at all this bad news, look at the J&J news, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, don't freak out, because remember, your body is innately intelligent, super powerful, super strong. It can handle thousands of carcinogens and chemicals that it comes into contact with on usually a daily basis. If you live anywhere outside of a city, even if you don't, you're probably getting exposed to dozens or hundreds of some type of chemical on a regular basis. So just remember, your body's handling that all the time. You actually get cancer like a dozen times a day, and your body just shuts it down and says like, nope, not today, and you keep going, and that's amazing. So just remember, your body's super powerful, innately intelligent. It can handle a lot of stuff, but it's also somewhat sensitive and talks to people in subtle ways. And one of the ways that women's bodies are talking to them is through crazy periods right now. And 20% of women do have like a miscarriage in their life, usually more than that. So it's not uncommon for miscarriages to happen from a variety of reasons, which we won't get into here because that could take another 10 minutes. But women sync up their periods with those around them, and if a lot of people around them, or even one person around them, is having a period that's abnormal or changing, then the women around them are going to sync up to that abnormality. So that's resonance theory. It's kind of quantum mechanics and quantum physics. It kind of deals with like the pheromones and hormone signaling, and it's all stuff that has not been rigorously scientifically tested as far as like why precisely exactly that happens. But remember, logic is fast, science is slow. Science takes years or decades or even hundreds, thousands of years to catch up to the correct logical scientific theories like gravity, like the Earth not necessarily being the center of the Earth, or like the flat earthers, all that kind of stuff. Whether you believe in that or not, it's whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But there is something called scientific consensus, and it's wrong all the time. So science in general likes to be questioned. True scientists are like, wow, I'm really glad that holistic Dr. Bradley Campbell is bringing up and all these great points and actually testing his patients to see what's actually going on. And I did some environmental toxin screening on people after the jab, and it looked really bad. So that's all cause for concern, because no one is doing this testing, and it's really hard to get patients to do this testing. And the more I share this testing, the more I get blocked or censored or hate, because people don't like to see their shadow side. People don't like to be exposed to the fact of how they're actually causing themselves self-harm, whether that's tobacco or alcohol or 5 Monsters or Red Bulls a day, whatever it is. People are like, don't touch that, because this is my belief system, and I believe it's helping me, and I believe it's going to save the planet, and I believe it's going to help others, even if it doesn't. So just remember, I love you all. Have a great day.